Good day. This is Merlin Berg, publisher of the Veterans Benefit vlog. I have Jim Burres back with me today, and Jim, we're gonna talk about military housing and contamination. You wanna kick it off?
Yeah, military housing contamination. That's I'm going to start off with my favorite quote. And that favorite quote is from an administrative individual in the Department of Defense. And she said, you know, it was going to cost too much money to inform the families that were being poisoned in base housing out of the current year's budget. Because, we got to do something with that money other than save our own people. After all, they go clear out, they're going to collect all that retirement. Now we can get rid of them just by poof, they're gone.
Okay, Jim. Well, just give me a little snapshot on the extent of the military housing contamination
Well, starting in
issues.
1947 till 1988, they put chlordane in the foundation of most everything they built. And that was true about the civilian housing too, because there were 30 million houses got the chlordane put in it. And then lo and behold, we're wondering why we have increased cardiac issues, prostate cancer, uterine cancer, all these cancers. And you go, you mean we poisoned ourselves using chemicals from, well, let's face it, that would have been the big chemical companies. And they have now there's a thing called the Monsanto Full Protection Service Command from the Air Force on their radar sites in Oregon, about 6 to 8 locations. They only had probably 20 to 30 houses in each place, but those were built after 1952. Again, the issue is anything they built in military housing, big housing complexes, if it had a flat foundation, there's a very good possibility that it had chlordane put in it and it began to seep into the house itself. And the effects are known. That's what the big lawsuit on Hawaii is right now is, gosh, they built over that site and over that site, and now the people are getting sick again because they didn't clear the chlordane out. When I was in the Navy, the first year, year and a half, my family moved into housing in South San Francisco off of Brisbane Avenue.
Yeah, this is on the island.
No, this isn't on Treasure Island.
Okay.
This is out by the Cow Palace.
Okay.
That's several miles from Treasure Island.
All right.
And it's about halfway between there and, I'm saying, San Jose on the back at the end of the bay. But it's just off Brisbane Boulevard. And they built this stuff. First of all, it's like the best example is it's similar very closely to Aaron Brockovich. It was a gas plant operation, and the military bought it, the land next to it in 1942, and just scraped all the dirt in there and built the housing. And then I come off the hillbilly heaven in Eastern Oregon with my wife and one kid, and I'm living there along with my friend who lives in that river right now. And gosh dang, our kids are having the same health problems. But could we figure out whether it was Treasure Island or Midway Village? Well, you look it up and look at Midway Village housing and Treasure Island housing, Area 12 on Treasure Island, and Midway Village when they tore it all down and built new housing in 77. And guess what? It was still contaminated. So there's all kinds of health problems. And what they've done on Treasure Island is they've moved 700, 800 families in there, and over the last 15 years, they've been paying $2,000 a month in federal subsidized rent as low-income housing. Good way to get another quarter of $2 billion to the city of San Francisco. And there's a company that manages that. That was the irony of it. When him and I went down there, is I ran into a new term in my life. It was called data gap survey. That means that we've tried to pass this puppy off on abnormally uneducated people for quite a while, and they just won't buy it because of what keeps showing up. That would be radioactive material, chlordane in the foundation, dioxin in the dirt from burn pits. All that stuff we're paying the Iraq vets for right now. Well, that was where I had my family move into when I had 3 kids. So, and it keeps giving. Because if you were in the military family network where you were actually retired, there's a good chance you lived in more than one housing unit.
So what can you give me an idea, Jim, of looked at the number of bases or the number of housing projects?
I got to tell you, I don't know.
Nationwide.
I don't know the number of bases. There's no way for me to know. You can look at the list, and I forget. I think I did try to add it up one time, but it's a lot. Because think about this: there's Condon Air Force Base. Condon's got a whole, at that time, 1,000, 1,200 people in it, and they're all over the country. Down by the Mexican border, east of San Diego, my mother cooked down there at another Air Force base, small one, Sac Site, because that was what we were doing with the bombs away with the Curtis LeMay, when SAC was big, Strategic Air Command, and they were watching the skies so that nothing snuck up on us. When I was a kid driving cat, those guys would come off the Columbia River and sneak up the canyons, and at eye level I could see the pilot's face when I was driving my cat out there in the wheat fields. So I'm just telling you, it's been around a long time, and when you can't give away the hottest property in the Bay in 20 years they've been trying to do this, and they keep coming up with more data gap surveys and all kinds of really nasty stuff in the houses, and not counting mold and mildew. You know, that's the precursor of what was that deal when you got in some of the hotels back in Philadelphia?
Oh,
Legionnaire's disease. Yeah, some of that stuff like that, and which is not good. You know.
So Jim, what's you know, if you're like yourself, you've lived in military housing,
Mm-hmm.
you've never been in the military per se, but you're a child of a father, mother that had been in the military. What kind of alternatives do you have
For help?
For help, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's the problem, because you know, every time you break open a new door at the VA and the DOD, you run into something that's already had plenty of years to develop its resistance. And so this whole thing, unfortunately, at times becomes a class action lawsuit, which in my personal opinion is a disaster for the victims, okay? Because you're going to have ongoing health problems, and you will never be able to quantify from the front side of those problems what they're going to cost you as you live out your life or your child's life. Because when they started poisoning us in the housing units in 1947, tell me what happened in 1988 to the newborn children, okay? They're going to live to be 90, hopefully, right? But 1980, so we went from 1947 to damn near, pardon me, 2100. Now that's a lot of time to be convincing guys that were sicker than a dog because you were bear hugging the chemical industry, the chemical industry is just right next to and exactly like the cigarette industry.
So what you know, I mean, is there some action? You mentioned the class action lawsuit, but really, what are some alternatives to address the issue?
Well, the only alternative that's going to make a difference, in my opinion, is taking on the United States Senate, because while we can beat the heck out of the House, and they'll usually come up with something a year or two down the road, then it has to go.
Have they taken this issue up at all? As
oh yeah,
what's going on?
3 or 4 years ago, they passed the Veterans Judiciary, or actually they passed the Agent Orange Equity Act, and the Senate never got more than, I think, 19 votes on it. So it was just a case of not enough pressure on not enough senators. And an individual at the Vietnam Veterans America told me the only reason that Camp Lejeune got checked out is there were so many retired military in North Carolina, Senator Burr was afraid to fight him. And that's where he enlisted the help of Senator McCain.
Thank you for your comments today, and we will get this broadcast up on the Veterans Benefits blog and on our YouTube channel as well. Thank you.
You're welcome.